Hello, everybody. Welcome to episode 7 of the Garden Revival BBQ, the podcast where we answer your big burning questions about gardening, plants, and the meaning of life. Spoiler alert, it's to buy plants.
I don't think that's right.
You sure?
Well, I would suggest asking the audience, but I have a feeling they would agree with you, so
Yes.
let's move on.
And that's because Garden Revival is a community of gardeners who love plants. We record the podcast episodes live on our Discord server. Join our community on gardenrev.com/discord. In today's episode, we'll be talking about verticality and small garden, including the plants and objects we can use to bridge that chasm between the ground and the sky. I am your host, IG, the very indecisive gardener, and co-hosting with me is garden purchase skeptic SpaceButler.
Yeah, I wanted to review some credit card receipts with you after this.
I'm busy. I'm going to be gardening. On the panel tonight are ecologist Passiflora.
Hi there.
Hello. And special guest, the Coneflower King himself, Brad of Garden Evolution.
Hello.
Welcome, Brad. Thank you for being here.
Thanks for having me.
I'm going to give you the same warm welcome I give everybody who joins the server by asking you, kill any plants lately?
Of course I have. If you haven't, you're not a true gardener.
Exactly. It's the new gardeners that joined that are so shocked at this question. The experienced ones find it hilarious.
Right.
And I tap myself on the back every time. Good question. So what have you killed?
A number of plants that I dug out for a new bed remodel that just didn't get enough water in the process.
Sometimes you just gotta get rid of the runts.
Yeah, I mean, it's not like I loved them anyway.
Yeah, you dug them up after all.
Yeah, I mean, I had plans to replant them elsewhere. They just didn't make it there in time, so oopsie daisy.
Oopsie daisy. So, Passi, I think you have some questions.
Yeah, I just have a couple questions actually for Brad, just because, just to help the listeners here kind of get to know who you are. I was just wondering, what kind of got you into gardening? Did you have was there kind of like an aha moment, or was there anybody who kind of guided you along, who kind of really introduced you to what makes gardening so fun?
Well, I got into gardening probably about 18 years ago, and it was because my best friend's mom had a cottage garden in her backyard that we always played in growing up. And then something happened where I noticed, of all plants, a hosta, and said, oh my gosh, I like the look of that. Could I put that in my mom's yard? And before you know it, I took over my mom's flower beds, expanded them, and then we moved into an apartment. I took over 4 people's fronts of their apartments. And then luckily we bought a house, and now I garden on a half acre, and I can't bother anybody else with it.
A half acre, that is an impressive amount of garden.
I need more.
That's
it's
fair.
never enough.
You could always
Never.
start encroaching on a neighbor still. The world's your oyster. You don't have to stop.
Oh, who says I haven't already?
Okay. And with your gardening, especially for gardening 18 years, which is an incredible amount of time, what's been the most frustrating thing to deal with, either in general or recently? What's been something where you're sitting there and you're just kind of it feels like you're beating your head against a wall trying to fix it?
Oh, currently is the amount of water that I have to put in my shade garden because of a Norway spruce that is just a water-hungry monster, and I'm ready to cut it down.
Oh, that's fair. I know there's a local Norway spruce here that is absolutely huge, which is kind of a shocker considering how cold it is here for me. But I mean, for at least your zone 6, I think that'd be even nicer for that plant.
Yeah, I mean, we have some really large Norway spruce down here, but fortunately for me, I don't have any large spruce in my yard anymore. When we first bought the property, we had, actually, I have to think about this, 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6 spruce trees taken out of the yard because they were so close to the house, or they were a hazard because they had forked so high up that they were starting to lean towards the house.
Oh,
Oh,
yeah.
wow.
So we just said they got to go, and we'll figure it out later. So in place, I have planted 2 trees for every tree that we have taken out of the yard, but we have surpassed that number now, and we're at 36 trees that I put back
Oh,
in the yard. Whether they're
wow.
small or
That's
large.
an incredible amount for half an acre.
I know,
It
like,
it is.
for some spruce, I mean, not all spruce, but for some spruce, I've heard that they have really shallow root systems. Is that true?
Yeah, no, they
Okay,
do. I'm
yeah.
still some of the trunks that we had, the stumps that we had ground out. I'm still finding roots just inches down.
Mm.
Man, I mean, I would say I can get about on a good day about a foot down, and then it's like, oh, there's that tree that I cut down.
Mhm.
Okay. Well, I mean, okay, so conversely then to what's the most frustrating thing to deal with, which is water loss, which is fair. What's been something that you would say like you're most proud of it? What's the thing where you're like every time you think about it, you're just like, feels good, sparks joy.
The fact that I have actually done 99% of the work in building this garden from scratch, whether it's hardscape to the beds to building my greenhouse, we've done it all. I mean, that is the most joyous thing to know, A, how much money I've saved, but also that it really came from these 2 hands and that it's truly special and nobody else can replicate that.
That's a great answer. I like that a lot. Um,
Yeah.
So for people who are like new getting into gardening or they're getting into the joy of plants themselves and they're having struggles with either like growing plants, keeping them alive, or they're not sure kind of, resources that would be available that would help them along. Is there anything that you would recommend or is there any kind of advice you would give to somebody starting out?
It's funny because I was asked this question on the Master Gardeners tour we just had. So the one thing I said to them was go slow and really analyze your property when you're starting. Don't just put in a bunch of beds because you're going to end up changing them 50 million times and plants are going to be in the wrong spots. Like if you're really wanting to do it right and save your time, really analyze your area, get to know it. But also that look around your neighborhood. You're going to see at least 2 to 3 times a plant that's really working in your neighborhood. And if that one's doing good and you like it, get a start of it. I mean, don't be afraid to ask for a start of a plant from somebody. Gardeners are probably the most sharing and caring people, and they're so willing to give, to get you started that it could be a good thing. Sometimes it could be a bad thing. It could be an aggressive plant. Just know a little bit about it. Um,
As long as it's not a Stella de Oro daylily.
yeah, no, it's not. No,
friends don't let friends grow it.
I'm probably gonna get bashed for this, but don't have a hosta garden. It becomes boring.
Mm.
And this is from someone whose first plant was a hosta.
And I have less than 10 varieties in my entire yard
And 36 trees.
and 36 trees.
Yeah.
There's so many cool shade plants. You don't need a bunch of hostas.
That's true.
Yeah.
Having like less than 10 plants, I feel like is just such a statement that just screams like you have either a very diverse garden or your garden is still doing so much better than a monoculture yard. If you're just like, yeah, for this one group, I just have, less than 10.
They have to be truly unique. I mean, they all just they're kind of like daylilies. I'm sorry to the daylily crew too, but why do we need so many cultivars? They look all the same after a little while. I mean, there's a lady that's only 15 minutes from me and she has over 500 named varieties of hostas in her yard, and
Oh,
she's like,
wow.
unless they truly are bizarre, I'm not adding any more. They really have to be different from the last one.
Yeah, that's a lot. That's I
Yeah.
think a little too many that's too many for me. I
Yeah,
would
I
get
actually
bored.
like hostas, but you're not the first person, Brad, that I've heard. We had Joseph Tykonovich on the show a couple of times. He does not like hostas either.
I love Joseph. He's good people.
He is so knowledgeable. Oh my god.
Yes.
Cool. Well, thank you for the kind of like those background questions. I do appreciate those answers, especially with the whole analyzing your space. I know, especially in my area, being a zone 3B, like a lot of people think I basically can't grow anything here, but it really is kind of one of those moments where you just have to sit there and think about where your spaces are, think about those micro habitats, and kind of plan things out. And yeah, looking around in your neighborhood, you're gonna see other people are growing things that probably work. And yeah, so I love that answer, and I hope that people do kind of take that to heart, because I think
Yeah.
that's really good information.
Yeah,
Yep.
I mean, I'll be honest. I wish 4 years ago when we bought this house and just jumped in and just started creating beds every which way, I wish I would have sat down and gave it a year and really planned my areas out for the long haul
Mm,
and, changed if need be. But realistically, I'd love to actually start my garden again from scratch completely.
Oh, wow.
I know it's crazy to say, but I dream of this big island in the backyard, but no, I have to deal with somebody who loves grass in my house, and I just want it all gone.
Oh, really?
Oh, I hate that big backyard.
oh,
I
controversial.
kind of negotiate with Space Butler too on the amount of grass. It's not that he loves the grass, he's just afraid of having too much garden and too little grass, like that balance shifting too much, I think. And I don't know if that has to do with him worrying about me having to do the maintenance. I think that's certainly part of it. But
That's
also
number
just
one.
Oh, okay. But also I think
Grass, you just have to mow, and if it looks a little crappy, then it looks a little crappy. But with there's a lot more maintenance involved in like big gardening beds, I feel.
There
well, I
is.
think
I
there's
do
also
agree with
just
that.
a general I don't know, standard of what people have in their heads of what a plot of land, their residential plot of land should look like. But we're breaking all the rules. And we're getting our spouses on board, hopefully. Right, Brad?
I hope. He did say the other day, he goes, "Are you going to mow the backyard?" And I said, "No, that's your job." He goes,
Exactly.
and he goes, "Oh, I was just hoping that you wanted to do it this time because I didn't really want to." I said, "Strike one. You only get three. When you start complaining about the grass goes."
That's a good strategy.
I would
Yep.
love to live in like the Pacific Northwest, where some folks, instead of having grass yards, they have like a moss lawn. I think that'd be
Oh,
perfect.
that would be amazing.
Although, I mean, I imagine the water consumption, I guess, could be a lot higher, but still, like, never mowing, it would be really soft to walk on. I think it's all pluses.
There's actually quite a few moss that do grow in dry shade. I actually just
Really?
transplanted some from our friend's house who was ripping out a bunch of yews and arborvitaes out of their flower bed to restart. And I'm like, that's some dry soil. Hey, that's some dry moss right there that's still alive. Picked
That's
it up, brought
cool.
it home, watered it in, and it still looks amazing.
Wow.
Yeah,
Well, that's cool.
go searching, you'll find good stuff.
True.
So, Brad, when the first garden that you sort of got into gardening with, the one that inspired you was a cottage garden. But that's not really your style right now, is it?
No, actually, probably about 2 years ago, I stumbled across a designer called Austin Eyeshide on
Yeah.
Instagram. And something about his work just spoke to me. And I found myself just sitting and analyzing that picture. Oh my gosh, solid 15 minutes going, what am I looking at? And why do I feel such a strong emotion towards this?
Mm-hmm.
And I started diving further into it and come to find out it's a naturalistic type planting, which then led me to the main guy, Roy Diblick, which then led me to Pete Odoff, who has done the Lurie Garden and the Highline in New York and a number of other amazing gardens. Another one that just happened was the Detroit Garden. And I started just collecting everybody's books. And then lo and behold, I became friends with the person that got me into it, Austin. And
Oh, that's
now I've been
wonderful.
learning from him and learning just, from what I see and studying. And, it just becomes a lot about knowing your plants, like how they act and everything. So you can create some crazy, beautiful designs and they're so easy to take care of. so easy to take care of. Far less work than a cottage garden, believe it or not.
And for those of you unfamiliar, that's sort of a matrix garden style, right?
Yes. Sorry, I should have said that.
And that means that there's all kinds of cool plants and groupings, but they're tied together with a matrix, it's called, I guess, of a single plant that goes through the whole garden and intermingles with them. Is that a good description of it?
Yes, but there's a little more to it. So there's some plants. It's kind of like a container. You have your thrillers, your spillers, your fillers, all that type of stuff. But generally, like you'll have like a Carl Forster grass punctuating in a spot, and then those are your scatter plants. They just kind of randomly come up in this meadow. If you say, if you're thinking about it. So then you have those plant pairings, your combinations of certain plants that might have similar foliage but different bloom times. You mix those in together and somewhat of like a drift or block, as you were saying, so that you're constantly having color in and out. And then you have color blocks, we'll say, of some plants that, can stand alone and do a big show. And then, like you have a matrix of a carex or a Coneflower grass or little blue stem or stuff like that. But it can be a number of grasses, or some designs don't even have very many grasses, and the matrix can be a nice sturdy perennial.
That's cool. It's so different from what I'm doing. I actually got my first ornamental grasses this year, believe it or not.
Oh, you've been missing out for so long.
So, and they're low growing ones. So I'm kind of starting easy. I got some Coneflowers.
Oh, you're gonna love those.
So I think this will be interesting when we get to the vertical elements part of the conversation, because we have such different styles. I'm looking forward to it.
Right.
I also wanted to ask you, because I kind of fall into these obsessions every year. Like, right now I'm going crazy buying roses, which, is arguably maybe not the most healthy way to do gardening, but it's just you start researching something and you just get fascinated by it. Does that happen to you? Is there something that you're really into right now?
Oh Lord. So I have been collecting any hardy Mayapples. And then I've gotten on the GM kick in the last couple years, geraniums. I've just now started growing potentilla from seed, which is a herbaceous perennial that kind of has a GMS bloom. Actually, I just took a picture of it. I could throw up in the chat here for you guys, because it's in combination with a purple. Oh, here you go. There's the browse photo button. What do you know? So this is, I believe, Wilmot's Ghost. So Miss Wilmot Potilla, it's in flower there. And then there's the purple geranium and calamintha mixed in together. So it's a really cool plant, and they come in a couple different colors. So I literally will collect everything. I'll be honest. When you said Coneflower King, I'm like, oh Lord, there's already 100 named varieties in my yard. But reality is,
oh my God, that was my next question. How many varieties do you have? Wow.
The number is gonna go down, because I'm actually finalizing my top favorites, and the rest are gonna go. I feel like I've trialed enough. I'm done.
If you don't have enough volunteers, I might take some off your hands.
Hey, you're welcome to have some.
I do need to cage them, because I have the worst bunny problem here.
I've got one in the backyard, and he's being a good boy though.
You can't just have one, can you?
Oh, he's the one I saved. If you remember my Instagram stories, he was the one that managed to make it out of the litter after my cat decided to kill the rest of them.
Oh my God.
And he ended up in a cat carrier until I could get the cat in for the night, and then I put him back out, and then he stood by my foot in the garden and just relaxed until Mom showed up, and then I walked away.
I'm so mad at these bunnies in my garden, but also I do kind of get attached. So I'm like, you little bastard. I hate you so much.
They're so cute, though.
Yeah.
What a
So,
good defense.
Passy, I'm going to ask you the same question. Well, first of all, kill any plants lately?
Oh goodness. Yeah, there's a few orchids in my terrarium that decided to just keel over. And I think my terrarium, the orchids I think inside of it, I'm just gonna have to let it go emotionally
Oh.
because unfortunately none of them are doing good, but that's okay because I'm restocking the terrarium with this one with just tropical plants and they're all taking off. So switching from a orchid terrarium to just tropical plants.
Every dead plant is an opportunity for at least one new one.
Exactly. Plus, I purchase all of my plants from this one local charity, the Orchid Species Preservation Foundation. And so,
Cool.
every time one of my plants dies, it's an excuse for me to go and spend more money at their charity events where they sell some of their, cuttings. And
That
so,
is very
really,
selfless of you.
yeah, I love giving them my money. And so, my
Yeah.
orchids dying just works out for everybody.
Oh, yeah, this is great. This is also a lesson for the newer gardeners. Don't get emotionally attached to plants. They will die. No
Hmm.
matter how well you take care of them, they have a limited lifespan, and human error is a thing.
It's the biggest contributor to their limited lifespan, unfortunately.
Not to mention pests and diseases, which you really don't have that much control over.
True.
Nature tax. We just call it nature tax and move on. What about plant obsessions? What are you collecting right now?
Oh, goodness. I've actually been having a weird native species kick. I don't know why. I've just been really, really loving finding all the different willow species that I can recently.
Mm-hmm.
And I think maybe because this spring, at least for me, has been a relatively cool one and a very cool summer. A lot of the flowering plants that I normally miss have actually been flowering recently. And so just getting to I have a couple different Excel spreadsheets that have lists of the native orchids and the native violets.
Wow,
And
you're
so
so
I've just
organized.
been I've just been going through the list of okay, can I see this one? Can I see this one? And been checking them off slowly.
I admire that. I'm not really a spreadsheet person most of the time.
I love a good spreadsheet.
We do have a spreadsheet of vertical elements we want to talk about in this episode, though.
Sure.
And I gotta admit, I have a selfish reason for talking about verticality in small gardens because I have a small garden and it lacks verticality for the most part. I really need some privacy from the neighbors. And I have this sort of lower layer, but when you grab a camera and you start taking pictures, it sort of becomes painfully aware that there's this big space that
Mm.
has nothing in it because the sky is just so vast and that house behind us is so big. So it's kind of weird to me that there's been so much breeding of shrunken plants. Like all the breeders think that small gardens need small plants, but it's only the footprint we're limited in. We're not really limited with height most of the time. So I think many of us struggle with that. And there are other reasons besides privacy and just sort of that balance that you want to create between low and high and middle ground.
Oh yeah.
You want to create focal points, which those vertical elements are terrific at. And they can lead your eye around the garden. And author Ken Drews calls, especially fastigiate trees and shrubs, exclamation points. And I think that's kind of a very cool metaphor. And they can also create intrigue when you don't necessarily want to block out something that's unattractive, but you want to block out something beautiful. So when you come around the corner, it reveals itself all of a sudden. And I think that's a really cool sort of feature that you can do with tall elements in a garden. And you can separate spaces. And even me with my about 12-foot wide side yard, which is in the scale of houses, it seems incredibly narrow. That is still sort of a separate space on its own that I can create a different environment in. than I have, let's say, in the backyard or around the patio area. And I can use those vertical elements to sort of create a bit of an intimacy in those spaces. Is there something I'm missing, you guys? Other reasons to love vertical elements?
Well, I love vertical elements because, like, for me at least, I live in an apartment building. And so I have to kind of embrace vertical, like, elements because for me at least, I have a very limited footprint on my balcony.
Yeah,
And so
yeah,
I've got to just go into verticality because
yeah,
I can't really go wide.
yeah.
In my situation, I mean, I'm kind of with you, IG, is mine's mostly just about using these elements to separate and divide the garden so that you don't see it all at once. You want that revealing
Yeah,
moment. You want those
yeah,
rooms, even if my style isn't, you know, formal, which you think of rooms and gardening rooms as a more formal of approach, you can still implement that into a like a natural wild
yeah,
type of garden.
yeah. So, what's the first thing we're gonna talk about, Space Butler?
So the first thing is small trees. I guess large trees would be a problem.
You can still have a couple large trees. We have 2 pretty mature honey locusts, but we can fit so many more small trees there. And you guys, small trees doesn't mean that they reach a certain size and they stop growing. Usually, when you see a mature size on the tag for small trees, that's the size they're going to reach in about 10 years. They're going to keep growing. So, I kind of take that into consideration, but also, don't be afraid to change things up. And, if they ever get too big, you can get rid of them. So, who wants to go first talking about their small trees of choice?
I like conifers in gardens. I don't know why. I think it's
Oh,
because
yeah.
for at least for me, 6 months of my year is basically dreary winter, and
Yeah.
conifers are like a nice, pop of color in an otherwise pretty grays area for me. And so I'm a huge fan of like either black spruce or like sometimes tamarack, although tamaracks do shed their needles. But like small spruce, like a black spruce, I love it. I just think that kind of like little bit of green makes my day when I'm standing there in -30 outside.
Yeah. 4 season interest, especially when your 4th season is so long.
It's basically only only the fourth season for me.
Yeah, chocolate and pickles in the chat totally gets that. Your Canadian comrade.
They understand. They know. Real knows real. Okay, Brad, and what's your favorite?
Well, I have 2 that I put down on the spreadsheet, which was a fringe tree, which for us it blooms in May, and it only tops out I think about 15 foot tall and wide. It's considered actually like a large bush, but it has these beautiful white tasseling flowers off of it.
Yeah.
Now, the
Ooh.
fun fact about those are they're, and I'm gonna say it, and I'm probably gonna say it wrong. Dioecious, when means there's a male and a female tree. So, in order for you to get the black berries that the birds really love, you are gonna need 2, and you're gonna need to make sure you have a male and female for that.
I didn't know
My
that.
other Yeah, my other I didn't know that until I was looking at them, and I went, "Oh, okay, never mind." But I'm still adding one to the garden. I will be picking it up actually in 2 weeks, less than 2 weeks. So I'm excited about that.
Bloom, they just won't make berries,
Yeah, yeah,
right?
that's the only problem. Unless there's another one in your neighborhood and you by chance have the opposite sex in the neighborhood to pick it up, but it have to be within 50 feet of it.
I mean, having to purchase a second plant doesn't sound that bad to me. Like, oh no, I get to buy more plants. I'm pretty on board
Oh, I
for
know.
this.
I know. It's a oh shucks moment.
Darn, take my money.
And the other one I chose is actually a later blooming. It's budding up right now in my yard, which is actually called a Seven Suns tree. These have these beautiful white blooms that have an amazing scent on them,
I love
and they
those.
have they're amazing. The exfoliating bark. They're usually multi-trunked, and then once the flowers are done, they have it's almost like a second bloom comes on of pink calyxes. that hang onto the tree. And then, they don't look great and wonderful during winter, but they have that peeling bark that adds interest, so you have something there as well to look at.
That's nice. And I mean, just having I guess, quotey fingers, 2 blooms, that's also really nice as well, just because you get a little bit more color too throughout the season instead of just maybe a month of one color. It's nice having a nice spread.
Yeah.
Right. And I mean, there's not very many trees that bloom late in the season to add that interest.
I bet all the neighbors will be like, what is that?
I hope so, and be jealous.
Okay, well, this was really a difficult one for me because there are so many, and I wanted to pick a Japanese maple to talk about because you can kind of plant them as understory trees under your big trees because they're okay with some shade, and there are some beautiful ones with very kind of fine foliage, very serrated foliage, but also ones that are called full moon, which have these almost round petals with some serration. And then there's everything in between. And of course, there are variegated ones. But I decided not to talk about Japanese maple, so that wasn't me talking about Japanese maples. I'm going to talk about a maple that is a hedge maple called Acer campestre carnival. And that has the most incredible foliage variegation. It's still pretty compact, and it has the white variegation is almost there's more white than the little green splotch in the middle, and the leaves come out a little pinkish in the spring. It grows into a dense rounded form that's about 15 feet high and 12 feet wide in 15 years, so it's pretty slow growing and is hardy in zones 5 through 9. This one needs a little more sun than you would normally think of a variegated plant needing. It actually won't do very well in less sun. Usually you would think that something like this would scorch in sun, but apparently it doesn't. The other plant I wanted to talk about is Cercis canadensis rising sun, and I have this one in my yard, and I love it because the leaves come out orange and then they turn yellow and then they turn chartreuse, which Passi hates chartreuse. I don't know why. And then they turn green. And this process is happening all through the year, and it's beautiful. But also, it doesn't pull attention the way these variegated plants do, because if you have a large variegated element, you don't want to have too much more variegation in its vicinity because it will kind of visually compete. So it's the Rising Sun Cercis redbud is it plays well with others, and that gets to about 8 to 12 feet tall and 8 feet wide, and it's hardy in zones 5 through 9. And then one more thing I wanted to mention is anything on standard like a lollipop shape. And that's usually done by grafting onto a sort of a strong vertical stem of another plant. And some that I think are really cool are a tricolor willow. I've seen ginkgos. You can graft various evergreens like that. And some stuff I can't get my hands on. Like there's a salix called Helvetica, which is a Swiss willow. It's so cool. It has the foliage reminds me of Artemisia, actually. And there's a pyrus, which is a pear called Pyrus salicifolia pendula. And when I mentioned this at a local garden center, they freaked out because to them, any ornamental pear, they think Bradford pear, which is very invasive. And all pears actually can crossbreed and seed around. So you never want to have the Bradford pear around any other pears you have because they will still go rampant. But I think it's just a really beautiful plant. And you can plant those in a pot to elevate it. And anytime you have that lollipop shape, you can underplant it. So you're losing basically 0 ground space because you have this stem that's maybe 3 inches in diameter. So I think that's really cool. And I'll talk less from now on.
I was going to say, Ben, you nailed it out of the park. Those are all some very pretty plants. Oh,
they really are.
Thank you.
I do have the Rising Sun redbud, and I have it on the side of my house outside my living room window. I know you said it doesn't pull attention. I think it pulls some attention. It's a
Oh,
good
really?
specimen tree or a focal point plant, personally.
Huh. Okay.
But it
All
might
right.
be because my house is a very light color that it grabs your attention when you come around the corner.
Mine
You,
is situated in the back of the bed, so maybe that's why it doesn't pull attention for me. I don't know.
yeah, mine's kind of a standalone with very little
Yeah.
next to it. But I do have a black nine bark next to it.
Yeah. Well, they'll contrast against each other.
Yep.
Yeah.
Next, we're going to talk about fast fastigiate trees and shrubs. I barely know how to pronounce these. I don't know what this means.
I learned a long time ago a good trick with like pronunciation for anything botanical or biology, like with the dioecious earlier or this case. Just say it confidently. Yeah, just
Oh,
say it
yeah.
confidently. Yeah, and
Everybody
then
else will think you'll know what you're talking about.
exactly, and then
Yeah.
everyone else will just be like, "Oh, was I saying it wrong?" And then it's fine.
I think that goes for a lot of things.
So, a fastigiate tree or shrub, the branches grow up instead of sideways. So, it's this sort of like very columnar, narrow plant, and you can pop those into little places that doesn't take up a lot of footprint but gives you the height. So, you can either build a very skinny hedge with them or do the exclamation point thing.
I'll go first on this one.
All right, let's go.
So I chose actually a large tree because it does not take up very much space
Yep.
widthwise. And I went with Parkland Pillar Birch. Perch. Not a fish, a birch. It's an upright tree. It's I think it was only getting 7 foot wide, but it does get 40 foot tall. And
Mhm.
it has the beautiful white trunk. And this one is actually known to be borer resistant. So a lot of us are dealing with the like a birch borer that's going around. These ones should be able to handle that borer without getting, killed. And
Hmm.
then even though it's a birch and they may not be the longest lived, you'll still get 45, 50 years out of it before you have to cut it down and make it into pretty ornaments somewhere in the house or out in the garden. But I think it's really cool. I'm actually thinking about putting 3 of them down the front of my greenhouse, which probably makes no sense to anybody, but I want that alley of beautiful white birch to walk past
Oh,
as I go down
yeah.
to my
It'd be
fire pit.
lovely.
So that was my only one. That's the only one I could come up with immediately that I thought would be awesome.
That's a very good one.
Yeah. I mean, for me at least, I don't know, I fall back with the same kind of conifer thing just because I don't know, I like them. And I thought black spruce, but actually I think white spruce would fit this a lot better because they do have a bit more of a wider growth for their branches. They don't kind of start hanging down as quickly as a black spruce does, and they do tend to get much taller. And they like drier conditions, which does work a lot better for a number of folks. So for me, at least, I really like a white spruce for like a really, really tall tree. What about you, IG?
I like the fine line buckthorn, Rhamnus frangula. I'm gonna try to pretend that that's how you pronounce it. It is also not a fish. It's got these fern-like feathery leaves that it's actually deciduous, but it's so dense that it looks from a distance that it might be evergreen. And that foliage is supposed to turn yellow in the fall. I don't know yet. I did buy one this year, and I've been able to keep it alive in the nursery pot, which is amazing to me. So that already makes me want to recommend this plant. Because keeping something alive in the heat in the nursery pot, that's a good plant. And it gets
Oh,
to
yes,
about
yes.
7 feet high and 3 feet wide and is extremely hardy in zones 2 through 7.
Hmm,
Yeah.
nice. I could even grow it then.
Yes.
That's a rare treat to see a plant that I like because I just googled it and this does look nice, and to know that I could plant one and have one, oh my goodness.
Yeah, even on your balcony.
Actually, my neighbor has copied me, and I have some trees on my balcony, and now my neighbor does too.
This is the most beautiful thing. Like when you get your neighbors into your beautiful hobby and the world becomes more beautiful, it's just beautiful.
After the trees, we have shrubs. Let's hear some people's favorite shrubs.
The less respected cousin of the tree.
I'm not even sure what the botanical distinction is. Do you know, Passi?
I do. I actually, because
Oh,
I was wondering that too, and now I know. Apparently, trees there's, at least for in Alberta, they have to get over 5 meters tall, and there has to be one major stem. So if it's like
okay.
multi-stem, or if it's shorter than 5 meters, it's technically a shrub here. That being
Huh.
said, like if you have like a short apple tree, it's a tree. Like I don't. Let's not have a semantics thing on this.
So we've got the botanical distinction, and then we've got the province distinction.
I think it's. I don't know if it's a provincial one or what the exacts are for it. I think it might be a botanical one, but it's. I don't know. People. I mean, if
Interesting.
you point at a tree and you say it's a tree, chances are people are either going to agree with you or they're going to be like,
Yeah.
and
Yeah.
yeah.
A lot of times things are listed as small tree, large shrub.
Mm-hmm.
So, yeah. Who wants to go first on shrubs?
Well,
I
I've
went
gone
first
first.
last time.
Yeah, and I've
So
gone first
IG, I
before.
think it's
So
you.
IG, it's your turn.
Okay. Hemamelis virginiana little prospect, which is a witch hazel. I haven't grown it yet, but I really want it
Wait. That's
because
not what's on the list.
I know, I told you I switched it up. I'm sorry. It's variegated. I love variegation. I know, Passi, you say it's a skin disease, but I love it. It's a beautiful skin disease. So the foliage has this green and yellow variegation, and it won't scorch in full sun, according to Plant Delight's nursery, which is good to know because with variegation, there's always that danger. And it blooms with yellow flowers in the fall and is a nativar of a North American plant, which means it's a cultivar of a native plant. Oh my God, Zeno just said yuck. Zeno! Calling him out.
Some
All
people
right.
just don't like variegation.
Oh,
I don't like white variegation. I like the gold variegation.
Really?
Yeah.
I like both. It depends.
It has to take a very special plant to have white variegation for me to like it.
All right. So, what do you think about Carnival, that maple that I mentioned earlier?
I don't like it.
Okay. All right. To each their own.
I think there's another one called Eskimo, and it has more of a pink tinge to it. That I
I
could get
haven't seen that
behind.
one. Okay, I'll have to look it up. There's another one called Butterfly that I actually might get because I think it's a little smaller than Carnival, and it is a Japanese maple. And I have a spot where I need that pop of light foliage. There I go. I said I wasn't going to talk about Japanese maples, but there I go.
It's hard
Okay,
not
back to the witch hazel. It grows 6 to 8 feet tall and wide, and is hardy in zones 3 through 8. So Passi can also grow that one.
You're just treating me to information. You know that?
Yay! Whenever I can teach the botanists some botany, that feels amazing.
That's definitely a win.
So I also wanted to mention just the category of multi-stem shrubs. One example being Cotinus. You can limb those up and have those beautiful naked legs on the bottom. So it's kind of like that small footprint I was talking about with the lollipop trees. And I've seen that done in the Pacific Northwest. Some accounts on YouTube that do it really well are Philip Oliver and Garden Go, and that's a designer Darcy Daniels. And if you can check out those channels, they have some really, really nice limbed up trees and shrubs. Small trees, large shrubs. There we go. All right, I'm done.
Okay, and Brad, what would you say are some of your favorite shrubs?
Well, since we're just going off the rails with nothing on the list right now, I'm actually going to switch my mind back to a conifer and give you Hicks yew. A lot of people don't like yews, but Hicks yew is only about 4 foot wide and can get, I think up to 15 foot tall. So it's like a really good
love
exclamation
yous.
point, a
I
really
love
good
you and you
narrow
and
head.
you.
I
That's all
have
I had.
literally stopped planting boxwood and I'm going back to yews.
I love
Okay.
yous. I really do.
They're so long lived. There's no disease. There's native
Yeah.
varieties. They can live forever and ever and ever. They clip well. They regrow from old wood. I mean, hello, winter, dark green foliage. Everything pops from them. You can't go wrong.
Yeah, that's
Yeah,
a winner.
They're a hit. They're a hit on this server. People love them.
I'm all for them.
Yeah, that's pretty perfect. And I mean, especially something that can have like a nice dense growth. I mean, you can just like, kind of do any topiary that you want with something like that.
Right. And then on
Yeah.
top of that, they can handle full sun all the way to full shade. Like
Mm.
how many plants can do that? And they're extremely cold tolerant. So Passi, you could probably, I don't know the exact growing zone, but you could probably be growing yews out in your yard too, and some fun, goofy topiary form of like a dog out in your yard at one point.
Be still my heart. That sounds so good.
That sounds great.
Anything else? Or would you say that one's just like such a winner that you're like, nothing even on a list comes close?
Well, I mean, there are some dwarf oak leaf hydrangeas that I absolutely love, like Munchkin, Kiwi are both really good ones if if you don't have the space for really big ones. And then there's a new smoke bush on the market called Lilla, Lilla.
That's a pretty name.
It's a true dwarf, only a 4x4. And
What
it has
color
smaller.
is it?
It's purple and just a little
Ooh.
bit smaller leaf than the regular. Compared to like the Proven Winners, Winecraft Black.
Ooh.
Yeah.
That one is said to only get 5x5. Mine hit 7 foot tall this year, so Proven Winners needs to update their website because
Yeah,
it's no
that's
longer a
where,
dwarf.
taking label sizes with a grain of salt comes in.
And that is only a 4-year-old plant
Wow.
Dang.
that it's already hit 7 foot. And I went, nope, off with your head.
No, you're not into limbing them up and just leaving a cloud at the top and having naked legs?
No, and I don't personally like the smoke on them. I'm all for the foliage, so I just coppice them completely
Yeah,
when they get out of hand.
I don't love the smoke either, but mine has never smoked. I don't know why.
We'll give it time. Give it time.
Okay.
It smokes on old wood. That's why.
Okay.
I do love the color of smoke bush though.
Oh, they're
That is
amazing.
pretty.
Yeah.
What is Proven Winners? Proven Winners is a plant brand here in the United States that is very, very, very good at marketing themselves.
Their plants are extremely good quality, but I've seen it happen where people fall into sort of this, it's not quite a trap, but they end up just planting all Proven Winners and everybody's gardens look the same.
Oh, okay. No, we're not going to open that can of worms with me, so we're going to move along. I will just say sometimes on Instagram I say, "Oh, it's the Proven Winners look," and you pretty much nailed that. So,
I see.
let's not put me on a rant, and let's go.
Let's move on to tall herbaceous perennials. Maybe Brad, you can start us off with that one.
So, I don't know how many people are used to, know this plant actually, which is Sanguisorba.
I know it. Yay.
They are such fun plants. They're very low in their habit as far as their foliage, but then they shoot up into bloom with these very airy stems and almost kind of like a miniature allium type of head. Would you say kind of like a drumstick allium is what they remind me of?
Yeah, I mean, there's different varieties. There's those ones that are tiny burgundy sort of little ovals, I guess. And then there's ones that are, there's one called lilac squirrel that has.
I don't like that one.
Really? I thought you would because it's kind of like a grass.
No, it's too floppy. At least for
Oh,
me. And I had it
interesting.
in some dry conditions and it still went, broke. I was like,
Oh, if
no.
it's floppy for you, it'll definitely be floppy for me because everything flops in my garden. Absolutely everything.
If you
Well,
can get your
almost.
hands on it, there's an amazing variety that just came out last year from Intrinsic Perennials called Plum Drops.
Oh,
Its
we'll look into that.
original name, fun fact, was Lady Killer, but the market did not
Oh,
like the name of that. So they went with Plum Drops, and it is a hybrid. So it's very vigorous in how fast it bulks up. I went from a quart-sized perennial to a 2-gallon perennial from fall to spring, like that fast.
wow.
And it is
That's
absolutely
awesome.
amazing. I've already divided it, and I've already got 6 plants out of that one plant.
What? Wow.
Yeah, yeah,
That's a winner. That's a
yeah.
proven winner. Well, unproven winner.
And so really what I like about this thing with sorbet is you can bring it to the front of the border and still see through the stems and create interest.
Uh,
You can put it in the middle, you can put it in the back. There's really a height cap. Like there's different heights within that family that you could really space them out throughout your garden to for really any reason you want.
mhm.
So yeah, that would be mine, and then obviously grasses. Who can go wrong with grasses? But that's a whole different line. We'll get to that.
Well, and IG, do you have a favorite tall herbaceous plant?
Well, I don't know if it's my favorite because I love so many plants. I could talk about delphiniums. I could talk about foxgloves and hollyhocks, but foxgloves and hollyhocks get rust in my garden. And the one that
Oh,
actually does really well for me is Verbena bonariensis, and I thought I would mention that one because I feel like it crosses garden style boundaries. Like it's something that I can have in my cottage garden, but wouldn't be out of place in Brad's matrix garden, more naturalistic planting. And it's a tall plant, and mine gets to, I think some of them are like 6 feet tall. And it doesn't flop for me. I have clay soil and everything flops. But this plant, until we get like horrendous rains, it stands right up. And there are these very thin, sturdy stalks that are actually quite scratchy. Like I've looked like I've gotten attacked by a cat, so watch out for those. And I've seen a squirrel try to jump on one. It did fall off, and they're not technically hardy.
You can inject an element of comedy into your garden by having the squirrels jump on the
Yeah.
the stalks of herbaceous plants.
Humor in the garden, that's a whole other topic. We could have an episode on. They're technically not hardy in zone 6, but mine do come back and they reseed prolifically. So if you're not into a little bit of disorder, this one might not be for you. And if there's a bit too much shade or they're crowded, there's occasional powdery mildew. But there are so many of them, just yank them out and you won't even notice. And that's another one you can plant in the middle, in the back, in the front, because it's so airy and see-through. And I did take a picture today, so I will try to post that real quick. And somebody else can talk in the meantime.
sure. I guess either fireweed or elephant's head. They're delightful. I'll post some photos of them. I think elephant's head, as far as plants go, has the best possible common name. It is so fitting. Let's see. Here we go. There. They're, I think, hemiparasitic, but because they're still hemi-parasitic, so they're only like half parasitic, you can still grow them from seed, even if you don't have the plants that they would parasitize. They're super friggin' cute. Their little flowers look like little elephants. It's hard not to love them. And also because they grow in the boreal forest, they're hardy to unbelievably cold temperatures, so that works for them at least. But yeah, that's mine.
Nice.
I'm waiting on my seeds for those to grow them.
Absolutely. If I can find seeds of them, either like locally available or something, I will let you know because like that's so cute.
They are.
Like,
I saw the
oh.
picture of them and I want them now.
Also, just like a very pretty purple color, and their leaves are
is.
super funky. Like their leaves are really weird looking, and so I think it's just a fun plant in general.
Cool.
Let's talk about tall tender plants. Maybe Passi, you can go first on this one.
I guess I'm gonna take a short break from my native plants, and I'm just gonna point out this is something where I wouldn't be able to grow it outdoors, and it feels bad. The USDA hardiness zone for this, I think, is between 8 and 10. So like I don't think you guys would even be able to grow it, at least not outdoors all year round. But it's the Colocosia, what is it? I think Colocosia gigantea, and then it's like the Thailand giant variety. Um, they can get to something, I think it's something like 2 meters, like their leaves can get 2 meters wide, and then I think it's like up to like 3 or 4 meters long. Like they are
Wow.
huge. They almost look photoshopped every time you see them. And Team Valor just pointed out that they grow outdoors there. Like, I'm green with envy right now. Holy crap.
He's in California.
Yeah, they're so cool, and they just like they grow up and over a lot of things. They love humidity. So obviously everything about them is just like the wrong plant for my local conditions, but they're like a white whale. They're a plant that I would love to have. I would love to even just try and get it indoors if possible, but they're
Yeah,
just
you can grow it
incredible.
under grow lights or just like overwinter it. I know people do it in a cold spot, but I think it takes like an old house with a cool basement, which not everybody has.
True, and like since I'm in an apartment, it's I
Yeah.
don't own this apartment. These plants love super high humidity, and since I don't own this property, I don't have to worry about mold issues because I'll move out eventually. And so I guess I could just really force the humidity here for them.
I actually just posted a picture of the one Thailand giant that I had in our apartment in a pot.
Oh my goodness, they're so cool.
Wow.
They're huge.
That's a large
Wow.
Yeah, they're so good.
You could hide your car with that. I don't know
Yeah.
why you'd want to, but if you're on the run. Okay. I don't know.
They make great umbrellas.
They do. And
Yeah.
They could.
it's just like it's so eye-catching. Just like it looks just like a normal plant, but then magnified 500%. They're perfect.
Yeah.
There's actually a upright variety of that. I can't remember the exact name of it, but it does get the same huge leaves, but it grows straight up rather than outward like the one I posted a picture of.
Oh,
I wonder if that's the one I
cool.
have that never gets very big because I mistreat it.
They love food and water. This one was planted in straight horse compost,
Amazing.
like horse manure.
Wow.
So
Yeah.
Wow.
I think the only problem I have with them is that they're a little short-lived. Like I think for this variety that I posted, it's something like seed to flower in 2 years. And I don't know, it's just so much plant to just die back after 2 years. It's really sad.
the good thing is they do pup quite easily. So you'll have a new baby coming off the bottom. So you will constantly have them. So don't be discouraged.
True. And like if it goes to flower and you manage to get it to like set seed properly, you can grow hundreds and hundreds of them too. So it's still not totally a downside having a short life. It's just one of those things where like you just got to stay on top of it.
But who has room for all those plants?
Someone
Brad
in an
does.
apartment, I don't care.
Brad will build a new structure if he runs out of room, right, Brad?
I'm already thinking I need a high tunnel.
Nice.
Oh no! Oh, we got to move along.
Well, I went with the red obsidian banana because I have always admired them, but I thought, gosh, what a waste of money for you to have to let it die at the end of the year. And then come to find out they're super easy to keep over winter in just a dormant state in the basement. So I actually bought one from a guy at the end of the season, did that. Luckily, it survived. And now I have one growing out in my yard in a big pot.
Nice.
So I was encouraged actually by the Impatient Gardener. I think a lot of us know her. She's over in
Yes.
Wisconsin, and now she's up to 2. So now I need to beat her and get 2 more, so I have 3.
The banana race.
Yes. But the good thing is,
Gorgeous.
if you don't want to deal with that, there is the hardy banana, which is Musa Basju,
Bashu? Yeah.
something like that. I don't know, but it
Yeah.
requires a lot of heavy mulch in order to get it through the winter, and I'm just not up to that. It's just easier to pluck this thing in, throw it in a trash bag, and throw it down in the basement.
That's cool.
That's a pretty common thing actually for a couple gardening groups up in this area, Edmonton, where one gentleman, he grows a fig, and he, every year he just plants it outside, he lets it grow throughout the summer, he gets some fig fruits, which are delicious, and then after that he just digs it up every fall, puts it in his basement. So, I mean, that is a workaround too for a lot of people who are thinking about trying to grow some plants that don't work for their zones. You can definitely, if it can overwinter, the second it starts showing that it's wanting to winter, you just, dig it up, bag it up, throw it into a basement or a garage, something where it's going to stay cool. But those are cool. I really like that red banana.
Yeah. Beautiful color.
And IG, you actually haven't told us what's your favorite tall tender.
I decided to skip this one.
What?
I'm sitting it out. Yeah.
What?
What is wrong with you? You don't have one?
First you drop a bunch of contentious
God.
plants here, and then you say, I'm not going to drop one here. It's like you wanted to start a fight, and then you're going to sit this out.
Okay. I'll come up with some. How about some dahlias?
No, that doesn't count.
Okay.
Not
Okay, let's
contentious
see.
enough.
Okay, you know what? I know what I want. Nicotiana or Nicotiana, however you pronounce it.
Oh, those are great.
I truly, truly love them. They reseed for me and they come back by themselves every year and they're beautiful. I have lime green and I have a white one and they smell beautiful at night.
And they have just beautiful flowers. Like, there's so many cultivars with gorgeous flowers.
Oh, yeah. Different species of them. And this is ornamental tobacco, and people kind of freak out when they hear that, but they are beautiful plants. They are fuss-free. They just grow on their own, and they smell wonderful. What else could you ask for?
Actually, I have the lime green one that I planted from a seed.
Yes.
Gosh, 3 years ago. And no joke, the plant still comes back its root in the exact same spot.
I suspect that some of mine do too.
It is never reseeded or anything.
They've got like tuberous roots, almost kind of like a dahlia. And I have daffodils that are horrible bullies. I have bad feelings about daffodils now. And the only thing that will grow in the same bed as them is Nicotiana and feverfew, which in itself is a bully.
Just having them fight it out.
Pretty much. I need to actually dig up the daffodils in order to be able to plant anything else. They've killed anything else I've tried to grow in that bed. They just spread like crazy.
I could give you one more that would spread in that bed and really beat out your daffodils. Black and blue salvia.
Oh, no. What is it?
Black and blue salvia. It's supposed to be just an annual for us, but it's been coming back for the last 5 years for me.
I had some in one of the beds with the daffodils, and it did come back a little bit, but it was pathetic. It was like a 6-inch plant that sort of tried to grow, but it couldn't compete with the foliage of the daffodils. It got shaded out.
Mine literally it's like perennial hibiscus. It waits and waits and waits, and then boom, you see it, and then it's off to the races. Mine's already like 5 foot tall.
I should try it again.
Holy!
Come get some starts. I got plenty. They're literally they're a tuberous plant. They have tons of tubers underground.
Salvia is one of the only plants that I can grow with the bunny problem that I have without caging. So yeah, that sounds great.
There you go. Offer stands. Come get it.
Okay, SpaceButler, we're taking a road trip.
Okay. Next plant on the list is
so scared of me getting more plants.
is tall grasses. We'll start with Brad on this one.
Okay. So I chose Black Hawk's Big Blue Stem, which is Andropogon variety. It's bred by, again, one of my favorite breeders, Intrinsic Perennials, Brent Horvath. This is a black grass. It starts out kind of a blue-green during the beginning of the season, once the ground starts warming up. And then it starts taking on a purple tinge. And then as the season progresses, it starts getting deeper and deeper. And then when it goes into bloom, which are just these, I think they look like little mosquito larvae dangling from these little things. I don't know. That's just my perception of it. But they turn this super dark purple black foliage from the base
so
all the
cool.
way at the top. And they're so airy, they're so beautiful. They're a native art. It's actually a native. It was just collected from seed and it popped up in his bed, from what I believe. And he just kept selecting and selecting for the deeper color. And there we go. I mean, and this thing is super durable, loves dry conditions, loves full sun. It's airy, see through, but still can punctuate an area. It's absolutely a stunning grass.
I really
Nice.
like that color. That looks so nice. And I like it because it's just so different from what a lot of people think of when they think of like ornamental grasses or just grass, right? And I think grasses are super diverse as far as plant families go. They've got a lot of great things going for them. And I feel like they get overlooked for in gardens because they do offer things like, in this case, this amazing pop of color. Man, that is a really pretty grass. Huh.
He's got a lot of different varieties in the big blue stems that he's bred for better fall intensity and color, to like literally fire engine red foliage, to shorter stature or even bigger stature. I have like Holy Smokes, which stays blue green and then turns this beautiful burgundy color during the fall. And then there's it's got another one I think called Red October. Is that the one? I don't know. This one turns fire engine red. It's amazing, but they're such durable plants. And if you're missing any element if you feel like your garden is static, a grass is going to be that missing link you need, because it's architectural, but it also provides so much movement that you can't really replicate in any other plant.
Absolutely. That's fair. Wow, that is a really nice one. I feel like my decisions were so much less good in comparison to that one.
Oh, come
Oh
on.
my goodness. I really like Thalaris grasses. They're also called, I think, just like reed canary grass is their common name. And there are a couple different cultivars that you can get, some that are variegated if that's what you want. It's like a very tall, nice kind of just it's a very tall grass in general. I think there's a couple cultivars that they send like that are really common that they send seeds out for. And I just want to say, heads up with these like reed canary grasses, make sure that whatever one that you are getting, if you want to get seeds for, that they're either a native species or the nativar, just because there's a lot that are going around that are super invasive. And so that's a big watch out for that, please, because the last thing you want to do is start growing a nice looking grass that turns out to be horrible for the local ecology. But aside from that one, the other grass that I love, and it's not a grass technically, so hate me all you want. It's called Areophorum, I think Areophorum vaginatum, or the common name is Arctic cotton grass. I'll just post a photo here. They look so cute. They're so friggin' cute. They remind me of like Dr. Seuss's Truffula trees. It's just like a very short, small little grass, kind of. They're in the Carex family, but their like flower seed head is just, it looks like a little cotton ball. Just a little
Oh, it
cotton ball on a little
does.
blade of grass. And I really like that. They're
Cute.
super cute. They look really ugly after rain. Just a heads up, because it looks like a sad, wet cotton ball. But when they're dry, that is a cute looking little grass. Kind of graminoid. There we go. But I love them. They're super hardy. They're really cute. They love wet conditions. So I mean, if you're in an area that's basically lakeside or partially submerged, they love that.
Those are freaking
Very
adorable.
nice.
Aren't
It's
they?
like a
are, yeah.
it's a refined dandelion.
Yeah, I like it. I like them a lot. And like every time I see them, because that's their seed head that has that nice little cotton ball look, right? I'm out in the boreal usually after plants have flowered, but those are their seeds. That's after they've flowered, and I get to enjoy looking at that. And,
Well,
they're
How many
cute.
plants look good after they flower? That is such a
True.
sought after quality.
Usually it's the foliage that people want to get then if they're like, okay, how do I make something look good, post flower or pre flower? But in this case, it's their seed head.
Beautiful.
Passy, I have two things for you real quick. So
Mm-hmm.
Blackhawks is hardy from zones 3 to 9, so you can grow it.
Wow.
Ooh, yeah, because I think there are some agripogons here that do grow here. So if that one's already a nativar, I bet I could get that.
There you go. And then second of all, plants that look good with seed heads like this little guy here. What have you prairie smoke, which is our native geum? Have you seen those?
Oh, I'm Googling that right now.
It's a
Oh,
cutie.
oh yeah, I've seen photos of this in my books, and I've never actually seen one in person, and I'm really disappointed because I want to see these things. That's so cool. It looks, especially in some of these cultivars, it almost looks like a little thing of cotton candy.
Yep.
That is cute.
It almost makes you want to like pluck the seed head off and play.
Yeah.
If I remember correctly, what the puffy GM, native puffy GM flowers look like, that kind of looks like clematis flowers after they go to seed, kind of like they make that little puff.
It does. It
Mhm.
does.
Also, I just gotta just give GMs props. I love their leaves. Their leaves are all really interesting textures and shapes, and just for gardens, I love plants that do offer like differences in shape of foliage. So that's always nice. Those are cute. Oh my
Well,
goodness.
now I want to tell two funny stories.
Yeah, I was gonna say no one's holding you back.
So I just went outside before we started, and I think the squirrels had ate the pots from my GMs that hadn't been planted, and the poor GMs are like completely wilted. I don't know if that's a funny story,
Oh
but
no.
those compostable pots, guys, be careful that animals eat them, apparently.
That's composting a little too fast then.
I know. The plants weren't happy about that. Their roots sitting naked. But my other funny story actually is funny. I remember Passy like 5 years ago. I don't know. I was on a lawn server, but I called it the grass server, and I mentioned it to you, and you got so excited, and you wanted the link. But then I gave you the link, and you were so disappointed because it's the lawn server. It's not a server about different ornamental grasses.
I like grass, and you know what? That's a hill I'll die on. Grasses are cool. They're neat. They've got interesting flowers. And I went on there and it was just lawns. And I was so disappointed.
That's true disappointment right there.
How about some Kentucky bluegrass for you?
Yeah, it's literally all it was. And then they were like, oh, cool. Like, there's a person who really likes ecology. And I was like, I'm dipping out. This is not for me. This is not my place.
Oh, God. Okay.
All right. We should move on to ornamental vines and climbers. Maybe IG, you can start out with that one.
All right. There are two I want to talk about. One of them is roses, which doesn't have any mechanism for grabbing onto trellises or arches or anything, but they can really cover a vertical space. Like we have this naked wall that is kind of embarrassing, like it truly looks naked. So I want to put some climbing roses up against it. And the way roses, quote unquote, climb is you bend those long canes of climbing roses either horizontally or diagonally, and they want to bloom on the like apical dominant stem, but you're taking those away. So they're making new apical dominants from all those nodes that they had leaves out of, and they end up having like a ton of flowers. And I know roses aren't for everybody, and they have a reputation for being high maintenance. But, I'm a gardener. I like to garden. I like all that stuff. And the other plant I want to talk about is clematis. And when I first sort of was introduced to them, I was in awe of all the large flowered ones, especially the double ones. But I don't know what happened. There was like a switch flipped in my head the last couple of years that I am so enamored with the tiny bell-shaped ones. They're so adorable. And there are two that I want to mention specifically, one being Raguchi. It is a dark purple one. And supposedly that is a non-vining variety, but mine has some little tendrils that grab on. So I'm not sure about the genetics of that. Maybe they have a smaller amount of tendrils. And the other one is Princess Kate, which is sort of an unusual kind of warm purple, almost burgundy color with white on the inside. And these aren't huge climbers. Raguchi gets 6 to 8 feet tall, and Princess Kate gets 8 to 12 feet tall. And they are pretty hardy. Raguchi is down to zone 4, and Princess Kate down to zone 5. And depending on which source you look at, I saw Raguchi being listed as hardy up to zone 8, but also up to zone 11 in another source. So it seems like you don't really need the cold winter to grow that. So I think those are sort of old-fashioned beautiful plants, but also new cultivars of old-fashioned beautiful plants.
I like those. I really like the bell-shaped flowers. I love when
Yeah.
plants have a nice bell-shaped flower. Those are
Yeah,
so
I
cute.
do too. And they're relatives of the ranunculus, which is cool too, I think.
I've actually, like you, kind of grown out of love with the big blousy flowers and have gone for the more smaller types. I have Moulin Rouge, I think is the variety. I don't even know. It's like the size of the flowers are like the size of 50-cent piece. No more than an inch and a half, and they have these little puffy pink centers on a dark maroon backing. They're very sweet, very heavy bloomers. So I prefer those. I don't need the big blousiness.
I think that's the natural progression for a lot of plant people is you start off with the big flower and you're like, oh, look at this cool thing. And then all of a sudden you're like, oh my goodness, this flower is like smaller than a penny. And like suddenly that's the thing that you love. And it's like, oh, what a dainty little thing. This is what I love actually.
It's so
I
funny
don't want to fall out of love with the large ones, so I hope I can appreciate both. I think it's a different mindset, and I hope I can still see the beauty in both. But sorry, Brad, go ahead.
Oh, I was just saying it's funny because I know a lot of like long-term gardeners, at least in my area, that like I was just at their house the other day, and it was all the small little flowers. We were like oodling and over. And we're like, oh my goodness, isn't it just adorable? And now you look at bigger stuff and you're like, well, yeah, you can see that from like a mile away. But did you see this tiny little thing that's right at your foot?
There's a benefit to that. You could grow so many more of them.
Yes.
Yeah, I know someone who's super into alpine gardens here, and that's one of his favorite things is like you can have a whole alpine garden, which is like the size of basically a desk.
I really want to try alpine gardening. I really, really do. But clay soil, I will have to do some major terraforming here.
Just
you could do some really cute troughs.
Yeah.
Yeah, I was thinking of making some hypertufa. I just need to get on it. One more project on the list of 1,000 projects that I want to do.
It's been on my list too. Don't worry. I got to repair my bird bath that's hypertufa.
Oh.
Fair. And actually, hey, Brad, on the vines topic, what's your favorite vines?
I went for a native, but this is a selected native called Major Wheeler honeysuckle. It is more disease resistant, won't get the powdery mildew, and it actually stays more compact in size, only getting up to about 8 foot tall. And it's got a deeper red flower that the hummingbirds really, really love. It's still edible. It's just it's a good performer. I have it on the side of my garage, and it's just a good doer. You can't go wrong with it.
True. I love honeysuckles.
you really need those reliable good doers so you can they can carry your garden, and then you can sprinkle in those magical little things that bloom for a short time, and you can really like appreciate their specialness. But
Mm-hmm.
you still have those good doers that'll keep the garden going when everything else is cycling through.
Like you mentioned that they attract hummingbirds, and like anytime I see a hummingbird, that's just such a magical little moment. And so that alone is a reason enough for me to want to grow that.
I never thought about like zone 3 whether you guys have hummingbirds. I'm glad to hear you do.
We do, and we do have these honeysuckles. Although I don't know about this cultivar in particular, but yeah, being a nativar, we do have like that. Probably could handle growing up
Nice.
here.
Cool.
I think it can. I think it's pretty. I'm looking it up right now on the trusty Monrovia website because they have every plant.
Heads up for people who are in Europe or at least not North America. Don't grow honeysuckle. At least make sure that if you are about to grow it, that it is one that is not invasive, because I was talking to some European folks, and I guess while I love honeysuckle because it's a native one here, over there, super noxious. So heads up with that one. At least the species I was talking about with them, that one was noxious over there.
Yeah, always check anything we talk about. They might not be a bad idea in our area, but we don't know about yours.
Major Wheeler is only hardy to zone 4.
I bet I could still do it. I feel like I could find the right spot.
You probably could with extra little mulch.
Well, that one is a pretty one, and I love red flowers. I have a little soft spot in my heart for like a nice bright red flower.
I think you're in the minority for gardeners who love red flowers.
Yeah. Ah,
I like red flowers.
They're growing on me.
It's got to be the right
depends.
color of red. This one's kind of like a corally red, so it
I like
helps.
corally red, and I like pinky purpley red, but like perfect red, that's where I have a problem.
Passi, did you share your
I didn't yet.
climber?
I didn't yet. I actually changed my mind from the one that I put in the spreadsheet. Originally, I wanted to talk about this cool vining cactus, but you know what? I actually was called out for it in event chat, and I feel like it is only fair that the person whose username Passiflora talks about this really cool vine, passion flowers.
I was wondering if you were going to talk about that.
Yeah, I feel like I can't not talk about that. As far as vines go, they're so cool. And like, you probably, even though their distribution is like more south than any of us here, I feel like you could actually get them to grow a little further north. Yeah, B, you did call me out. I see you're typing. Yeah, they're super cool. Their flowers are beautiful and like very alien looking. They have a really cool ecology. You can make their leaves into a tea if you want, which is nice. They do have some species in the genus have a delicious fruit if that's what you want to go for. I like them. I think they're neat. Be saying literally a ditch flower, and I don't feel bad. I like it. Ditch plants are still plants.
They look incredibly exotic to me, not a ditch flower at all.
Passiflora incarnata is actually hardy for us. It's a purple variety.
Oh, perfect. Absolutely. Do it up. Absolutely. They're so cool.
Well, a word of caution. I did have this plant, and it grows extremely fast climbing anything, but it will tend to sucker and throw you out some random vines elsewhere in your garden. So make sure you're prepared for it. And that was in heavy clay.
Oh, geez.
Wow.
So mind where you put it.
Oh, I wish I could grow it outdoors. They are so cool.
They really are.
And they have an interesting history, too. I mean, for anyone who's interested in plant history, definitely look them up.
Yeah, but the USDA says it's listed as invasive by several authoritative sources.
What
Please
do they
contact
know?
your local agricultural extension.
How can it be invasive?
You guys, I want to do an episode about plant bullies.
I find this really hard to believe that it's an invasive, considering I thought it was a native variety.
I think it depends on what area you're in.
Well, then it would just be aggressive. A native can't be an invasive if it's already in home.
That's true. I don't know if it's if I don't know where it's native to exactly. Let me see. It's the southern United States that it says it is native to. So I'm not sure if you try to grow it in, say, Ohio or Pennsylvania, that would be considered a native use.
Well, that we'll argue about that later.
That's fair enough.
It's still on U.S. soil. It's fine.
Yeah, well, it sounds like it could be aggressive though, so people should watch out probably.
Sure, if it's sending
Absolutely.
out like suckers out through clay soil. Oh my goodness.
Yeah, that was quite a surprise.
Yeah.
That is a powerful plant.
We can move to talking about planters. Brad, what do you think about this? What kind of planters you like?
Oh, I love a good, tall, wide pot.
Oh yeah, I like big pot, and I cannot lie.
Right, exactly. The bigger, the better. I have some 26 by 26 by 26 square cordon steel planters that I'm actually incorporating in my garden in an like a artsy way in one area, and then just a big riser as an architectural feature in another bed that I'm going to be putting a plant that doesn't need any extra help of getting really tall, but I'm putting in a I lost the name. What is the elderberry? It's the variegated one from Proven Winners.
Oh.
Instant Karma. It's a variegated variety, and
that gets enormous.
I know, but I'm using it to help block the view further, so you don't see the rest of the lawn border.
Clever. They are fabulous. Absolutely fabulous.
Yeah, I'm waiting for my tricolor bee to like bulk up. It's going to take ages, so I'm going to use that monstrosity of a plant to like hide the rest of the garden for the time being.
Good idea. That's fast growing, I think.
Oh yeah, but that's mine. Just a really good sized planter. The biggest you can get, the better, and they become great focal points too. I have nice sized urns that are like 4 foot tall in corners of my garden, so that it becomes a focal point where I can't grow something because it's just too shady and I need some height.
Yeah. Oh, I adore big pots. They're awesome.
I find them on your local Facebook Marketplace or Craigslist.
I need to look. I never do that. I don't know why. I just don't.
Oh gosh, you're missing out on all the good deals.
I know.
Right, IG, what's your favorite kind of planter then?
Well, I'm gonna take Brad's big pot and I'm gonna cut out the bottomless pots. And this is an idea that I first saw from Bunny Guinness on her YouTube channel. And it basically gives you an unlimited soil reservoir, and it makes it so you don't have to worry about watering so much because the plants just go right through and grow into the ground, and you could grow like a whole tree. And it's like, how is that giant tree growing in that small pot? Well, it's just grown right through the bottom. And I think that's amazing.
I like that. That's really cool.
Here's a picture SpaceButler posted. This is a screenshot from one of Bunny Guinness's videos.
I'm actually running out to my garden right now to take a picture of that big pot.
So we're going to get some live garden tour action. Thank you, Brad.
Kind of, sort of, if this works.
Oh, you might as well take a picture of your decorative objects, too, because that's our next category.
I already got those.
Good.
Perfect. I remember I talked with this one gentleman forever ago because I was just like walking along and I saw he was working on something in his garden, and I had to ask him what he was doing. He had like one of those workout balls that he was coating in cement. And he was coating it in layers and layers and layers, and then he was gonna deflate it afterwards, and he builds his like pots that way, and he makes these like huge cement spherical kind of pots.
Oh my god.
And they looked super cool. They were like a very ornamental kind of thing. Yeah.
What's hypertufa?
Oh, definitely. And I think like for people, like when you guys are looking for pots too, like pots have crazy markups in stores. Like always consider the fact that you could probably make one yourself that would look really, really good too.
We gotta have a hypertufa party sometime where we just all like get together and make hypertufa pots.
I mean, I would be down. I think it's a bit of a drive for me compared to you guys. However, I am willing to make the drive.
I'm totally in because it would require me not to make a mess in my yard. So I'll make a mess in yours.
Oh my God. My yard is barely like a postage stamp size.
Well, then it'll be easy cleanup because it'll all be contained.
I see. Okay.
I'll tell you what, then. I mean, if you guys want, I can host. You guys just have to come over here.
Yeah, and then shipping our hypertufa to the States is going to be ridiculous expensive.
We'll just have to drive 4 days to get there.
Good idea. That'll be much cheaper with gas prices.
Absolutely.
So what are you showing us here, Brad?
That is the big planter. It's actually, I had to coppice the poor elderberry because I transplanted it from the front of the yard to the back of the yard, and it was already 7 foot tall and wide.
Oh,
so
wow.
Holy.
you wouldn't know that it's actually inside that planter right now. That's how much I had to cut it back.
And next year it'll grow back to its full size, probably.
Oh, it's already starting to regrow.
Also, for like a spur of the moment photo too, getting to see your garden here,
Yeah.
there's so many cool plants.
Yeah, getting compliments in event chat.
Time to move on to other decorative objects in the garden.
Brad, you got any pictures of those beautiful sculptures you have?
Yep. Actually, while I was out there, I took a new one, so I'm posting that in the group chat real quick for you guys. I'm using
Love it.
wine barrel rings and old wagon wheels put on rebar and
Doesn't that look amazing?
and the old basketball posts. My old manager actually did these for me, and I have them kind of scattered throughout the garden in different ways. I've got a couple other photos I can pop in here real quick for you guys too. Let me find them. But we've just been using those in different ways, and it's a nice little element that runs throughout the entire of the garden, front and back, and creates some continuity. And it's recycled goods.
Yeah.
It was going to end up in a waste field or scrapyard, and now they're cool art pieces. And I actually got the idea from I don't want to say it's original. Nick Mickland. I never remember his last name. I'll be honest, but he's
Is it Nick McCullough?
Yeah, McCullough, down in Columbus. He actually has these running in his garden, but he doesn't have the big ones like I do.
I really like that.
Those look really good. Like the contrast between the geometric shape and the soft grasses. So nice.
Yeah, I really, really love them.
Yeah.
IG, what do you got?
My choice for decorative objects is could not be more opposite to yours. It's like a something that comes from Versailles in France. It's like formal and the royal and not recycled. It is French tutors, which means it's an object to train climbers onto. I think those are very pretty, and they kind of fit my English garden vibe somehow, even though they have French origin. I think English gardens have really appropriated that.
Those are quintessential cottage garden elements.
Yeah. So I quite like those, but I also like what you have. I like it all. I want to have... See, this is why all those trees and shrubs are good to divide spaces. You can have a different vibe in every space, and they're not gonna clash because you're separating them. So yeah, plugging that fastigiate tree love.
Let's talk about everybody's favorite topic, trellises.
Is that everybody's favorite topic?
Somebody hates trellises here? Who's the trellis hater?
Raise your hand if you're a trellis hater. No, nobody. Everybody loves them. Okay.
I told you.
I don't see any hands. Yeah, I think SpaceButler's right. I think trellises are the most popular thing because no one's hands got raised.
Yeah.
So, Brad, gotta ask you then, what's your favorite type of trellis?
So I'm cheap and I like an easy thing or a quick DIY. I went with cattle panels that you can get at your local farm and feed store because they're $40 for a 16-foot long panel.
Those are great. Yeah.
Right. You can use them as arches in your vegetable garden, or what I did was just slap them against my fence, put a couple nails in there, and now I have vines growing up them. But on the side of my garage, I want it to keep the nice stuff that I already did. We redid our garage last year, and I did just a couple nails, separated like probably about 2 foot apart. And then I took fishing line and I tied it off, and then I ran it in a diamond pattern. And that's what I have my major wheeler honeysuckle climbing up.
Nice.
So it's kind of invisible. You only catch it in a certain light. And then it's super cheap. It's super strong. When you want to get rid of it, just cut the string, pull it off, and you're done.
Again, you're going the opposite of my pick, which is fancy. And
okay,
also,
IG, what's your favorite?
So my pick is fancy, which means I can't actually afford it.
Aww.
It is tension wire. Okay, it's actually not that expensive, and I might get some. And the reason I like tension wire is because it's sturdy. It hopefully won't rust and will last a long time and can be readjusted to if the metal tension, it's kind of braided wire. If it gets some slack in it, you can tighten it up so it's not going to look crappy, but also it's really inconspicuous. It's not a trellis that pulls attention and hopefully lets the plants shine. This is where I want to do the climbing roses and the clematis. So I think those are pretty cool.
I like those too because even though they're simple, they're still a little bit of a modern touch to your garden.
Yeah.
Fair. Yeah, those are really good.
Yep.
I guess for myself, when it comes to trellises, I prefer to just kind of like have plants, at least on my balcony, they're just like growing up the banister and the rails and whatnot, rather than like trying to use trellis. Although I do actually have a bunch of I think basically chicken wire outside because my cat likes to go out on the balcony. We do have her on a harness with it actually attached to the wall, but even then, I still don't want to risk anything, and so we put up chicken wire as well just to make sure that she's not going to try and jump because she's a little dingus and she'll do that. But the second she sees a bird, any self-preservation is out the door. I've seen her run straight into a window trying to get a bird. So I can't take risks when she's outside. So outside, I definitely just like plants growing up banisters and whatnot. However, especially if you're growing any kind of any plant that uses its roots for for structural strength or anything like that, make sure that it's going on a trellis because otherwise those roots will go right into any kind of walls or banisters which you don't want. And for indoors, because I got a little twist here, because I have terrariums, I really like using egg crate, which I'll post in the chat right now. It's called egg crate. I don't know why, but I really like using it for inside terrariums because you can kind of just paint it to make it kind of blend in with any kind of background. But then it does offer some nice supports for any kind of plants. I took a really shitty photo inside my terrarium where you can see I have a couple climbing plants that are already starting to take to it. And
this is really not a shitty photo. This is a beautiful photo.
I could do better. But yeah.
All right, I challenge you.
I mean, I can't right now. It's a little bit too far from me. If anything, I would just end up taking worse photos. But yeah, I think that one works really well as well.
I love these episodes we do that are compilations on a topic because leave it to Passi to think outside the box by thinking literally inside the box.
I have to. I don't really have a choice given my garden situation.
Well, a lot of people, their garden is an indoor garden, so the height applies there just as much.
True. But cool. Okay. So I think we covered almost everything basically as far as verticality for gardens or different elements for things to think of for verticality. But is there anything else that we should touch on? Or Brad, is there anything that you can think of? Or IG first?
Okay, I'll go first. Mine is plant theaters. And again, this is one of those old-timey things. I don't know. I'm mining the old-timey look. I don't know. I'm in that era, I guess, as the kids say. And have you guys heard of auricula theaters? This is kind of where this started. And at first, auricula theaters were a way to protect these delicate little plants, delicate little flowers, and delicate foliage by putting them sort of in a box with an open side, so they have a roof and a little protection from the elements, but then they got more elaborate and people started making these auricula theaters to display their prize plants in a fancy way. But now I'm seeing people display all sorts of collections in them. And you can build this. It's sort of the way I like them is sort of the shallow bookcase structure that you can put outside, and you can have seasonal displays, whether that's your primroses or spring bulbs or pelargoniums, or when you bring out your houseplants in little pots, you can put those outside in a little bit of a protected shady spot for display and give it that height. I think those are quite cute and versatile.
I like
and takes
that.
a bit of DIY skill.
Yeah. I think the photos that SpaceButler posted, that one that does look like a little theater, that's so cute.
That is adorable.
That is really good. And Brad, what about you? Do you have anything else that you find, like, what do you like to think of, or anything else you want to add when it comes to verticality in gardens?
Well, okay, so at the beginning of this, I'm like, oh, it's verticality in a small garden, but I really guess it is verticality in anybody's garden. Something to really think about when you're starting to design your garden is structures that you have and that you're going to need, like a greenhouse or a shed for equipment and stuff. Remember that, if you need to hide those types of things, hide them accordingly, or if you want to showcase them, make sure they're, be able to be seen, but, figure out placement of those as well, so you're not, I don't know, like hung up on it. I don't know where I was going with this, but I just remember on the spreadsheet, I was like, oh yeah, structures, but where was I going with it?
Yeah, I think that kind of ties back into what you said earlier about the, like, advice for people starting out with gardening of, like, thinking things through before you kind of do it. I agree with that. I think, having a plan for something like greenhouses, before you've added it, and then, like, is the greenhouse something you want to accentuate? Is it something you're trying to hide?
Exactly. Because I mean, you just don't know. Another thing that arbors and stuff like that. We didn't really talk about that, but arbors in your gardens are
Yeah.
not only great trellises, but also another feature that you want to accentuate or maybe add in there to start leading you through the garden that could define a room and all that type of stuff as well.
Oh yeah,
So
there's so much more we could talk about, but at this point we're 2 hours in. We haven't done
Yeah.
the big burning questions yet. One last thing I want to say is keep an eye out for your borrowed view, because that will interact with what you're planting in your garden, and that borrowed view may be providing that verticality that you need. And you might not have to plant something in front of it because you've already got it and it extends farther out. So you don't have to use your own space for it. Zeno approves of your garden because it's tidy. Zeno is very much into tidy, meatball-shaped everything. And mess makes him a little uneasy. So you are Zeno approved.
I would love to take a picture of it right now, because that's not what that front area looks like right now. They would have a stroke seeing it.
Zeno would hate my balcony. I love good, like, dangling plants, and I think my downstairs neighbor hates me because, like, my goal every year is to try and get as many plants as I can that are, like, that flow and just, like, just dangle to just grow on the edge of my balcony. And just,
Okay.
like,
There you
just
go. Thinking
flow
outside the
over.
box again, but instead of going up, you're going down.
It's a vertical element. It's just vertically down.
It is.
It's vertically challenged.
I'm a professional upstairs neighbor, I'll have you guys know. I even find a way to make people's balcony experience less enjoyable.
No, I think you're improving their experience. They're getting free greenery. They're getting a free backyard that they wouldn't normally have.
Free.
Yeah. And now I will let SpaceButler move on, because he is very worried about us being way, I don't know what to call it, 2 hours in.
Just when you post this, have it played at like 1.5 times speed, and you'll be fine.
Oh no, that's too intense.
Hey listeners, thanks for sticking around to the end of part 1, all about verticality in small gardens. We'll be uploading part 2 separately, so you won't have to put up with sped up chipmunk voices. In part 2, we answer our Discord community members' big burning questions. If you'd like to join our community to chat, listen to live episode recordings, and submit your big burning questions, go to gardenrev.com/discord.